Please like and leave a heart. Please.
There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Vidor Locksmith Show. I'm your host, David Gibson, where we are unlocking the secrets to success in the oil and gas industry. One interview, one technical presentation, and one technical screw-up at a time. Please let me know what the technical screw-up is for today. If my audio is not working or if something else is going on, feel free to just give me a shout and let me know. Look forward to hearing from all you guys. Please let me know where you guys are watching from. Love to be able to give everybody a shout out here on the screen as we continue to go through the show. Got an absolutely amazing show here for you on this Friday. And as I always say, so happy it's Friday. I had a great week. And hope everybody else is doing the same. Try to think of any other updates that I've got. Thursday, that's a good one. Thursday will be at the IADD Directional Drilling Digital Transformation event in Houston, Texas. I believe that's up in the Woodlands at the Landry's Seafood Steakhouse thing. 8 a.m. to about 5. It's going to be an absolutely amazing event. Anybody that's looking at doing anything in the digital directional drilling space, going to be a lot of speakers, presentations on such. I will be there. I know Paul Pest26, Son Fam, a couple people from Hess Chevron, Kelsey Prestridge from Chevron. I think she's going to be there. It's a great lineup. A lot of really good speakers that are going to be there. So if you guys can, please be sure to sign up, make it out. Reminds me, I do need to sign up for it as well. I think that's what I need to do. Let me write that down. Sign up for IDD event, right? Things that come to my mind as I'm doing the show, much less all the text messages and stuff that I've started to receive just now. All right, like I said, we've got an absolute amazing show for you guys today. Please let us know where you're watching from. Love to be able to get everybody a shout. So we've got Khalid that says he's looking forward to an interesting show. Moray Laing. Yes, absolutely amazing show. We've even got John DeWart tuning in from Colorado. Says he's looking forward to hearing more, sharing his insights. All right, there's tons of people. Duncan Gross says morning from H-Town. Thanks for being here, sir. Luther tuning in from Cameroon. Thanks for being here as well. All right. Traffic on the comment side of the show today is fairly slow, but we'll get there. We'll get going. Here we got another one. It says LinkedIn user tuning in from Houston, Texas. Martin tuning in from Dubai. Thanks for being here, sir. All right, let me see if everything's working over here on LinkedIn. It is. Actually, all the comments and stuff are thing that's on there is all skewed. Now it's looking correctly. There we go. Oh, and it's back to not working again. All right. We already did Martin. Mustafa's tuning in from Ottawa. Thank you for being here, sir. Do appreciate it. Christian Face is hello from Manitoba, Canada. All right. Warrior already said he was worried about this one. Duncan Blues here says looking forward to hearing from Warrior. Says Dave, attending from Melbourne, looking forward to another great session with Warrior and yourself. It is a great subject, especially with all the recent upswing in market recovery. Yes, I agree. Zaid says hello. Thank you for being here, sir. Mario tuning in from Stavanger. All right. Very international audience. Javier tuning in from Houston, Texas. And then Mr. Robin McMillan. Good morning from deep in the heart of the energy capital. Well, thank you guys all for being here. Do appreciate it. All right. One thing I do want to say, if you guys haven't already, be sure to follow or connect with me on LinkedIn or hit the other button that's like right about there. Click for the notification icon so that way you guys actually get notified when we go live, since a lot of people still don't know show is at Friday at 10 a.m. Right? All right. Let's do a giveaway. I've got a drill bit and can I reach it from here without stretching my should have had this on my desk already, but we've got an absolutely amazing sponsor. We've got Patterson, who's hooked us up with a hat, some special little ice cube things that have like their little logo on them. Pretty cool stuff. Maybe I can actually show this. There you go. See, this one's like $7, football helmet and the Texas thing, right? But this one has a little Patterson logo on them. Like I said, and a drill bit. If you guys would like to be able to win a drill bit, put in hashtag PTEN into the comment section now, and you'll get entered for your chance to be able to win a drill bit, as long as with all the swag from Patterson as well. All right, let's show a quick little. This is the performance center there at Patterson. All right. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Patterson, for being able to provide us with some swag to be able to give away and being a sponsor here of the show. All right. Let me find a little thing to take that off the screen. But you guys go ahead and keep putting in the hashtag PTEN as we go through the show, or you just also continue to comment. We'll do the drawing there towards the end of the show. All right. Nobody wants to hear me blab on anymore. Let's bring in our guest for today, Moray Laing from Halliburton. Moray, thank you so much for being here, sir. We do appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm blown away that you would ask to hear anything I've got to say, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it's not just what I'm looking forward to. Obviously, there is quite a bit of people around the world that are interested in what you have to say. A couple of quick shout outs. We've got Eric tuning in from south of France. Chuck tuning in from Nigeria. We've got Scott Duhan tuning in from Conroe, Texas. A couple of other people, and Donald saying good morning to everybody. All right, there we go. All right, so Moray, give me a quick background on who you are and what you do here in our industry.
Goodness, it's such a loaded question. I people that know me will tell you I could probably talk the rest of the day on that subject, but
that'll make this interview go real easy, and I'll just sit back and relax and let you talk the rest of the time.
I'll give you my journey to where I'm at, and then I'll talk about what I'm doing now, if that's okay. It might take a little bit longer than a quick answer, but you know, I started in this industry in the late 80s in Aberdeen in the UK, just coming off the back end of a recession and a downturn in the industry. So, you know, graduated from college with, my majors were in electronics and computer-aided engineering, design and automation, and there were no jobs, right? So I took the first thing that came along, which was a rig-up technician for a company called Xlog at the time, and probably learned the most of all the jobs I've done, traveling the world and installing different rigs and instrumentation, working with rig crews, learning to apologize to the operator because it's not quite gone the way they wanted it to. And then, you know, after about 5 years, things started to pick up in the industry. Very quickly sort of moved into technical support roles as we expanded globally, moved into R&D for about 10 years. This would be at Baker Hughes before I moved into product management. And then about 2013, I think it was, decided that, 25 years at Baker was enough. So I actually left the industry for 5 years. Went to work for a company called DSATS, who are an advanced analytics company, and still worked in oil and gas, but I was also focused on other energy verticals, like the grid, for example, and manufacturing. And I learned a whole ton about where oil and gas really is in relation to those industries. 5 years on, Halliburton reached out to me and brought me back into the family, and I've been at Halliburton for 5 years now. My current job is I look after rig integration. So our strategy for automation in a nutshell is that, we automate the equipment that we own and we deploy and we run, but we want to integrate with the automation systems that the drilling contractor has, for example. We don't want to run their equipment or their machines, but we feel that there's benefit to the industry with the integration between the services that we have and the automation that they have on their rigs. So that's my focus. I spend all my time working with drilling contractors these days and trying to move that forward. It's very enjoyable, having a great time.
Well, talk to us a little bit about that. Where is the industry at right now as far as automation is concerned?
Confused might be a good way to sum it up. I think, honestly, the drilling contractors have a very good handle on it. I know, that there's, in terms of automating the rig system, but I think where we're not quite there is in automating the drilling system, where you have to start thinking about the well plan, the schedule. Your costs are more than just ROP related, right? You've got subsurface tools. So how do I blend my directional management system with my surface rig management system to make it effective? I think we're starting to land that now. I think there's general sort of agreement I'm seeing now across the industry and how we build those things together. And a concerted effort to enable it and make it easier to deploy those things. And you see that with certain technologies like, NOV's Novus. You got Neighbour's Smart Rig operating system that they can now deploy on any ACVFD rig, essentially. And it really changes the game in terms of how we start to blend the drilling system into an automated solution rather than just the rig system. I think the rig system is the purview of the drilling contractor, and it's about how we integrate with that, not how do we, do their job for them, which I think has been honestly, I think it's been the fear for a long time is, are you going to come in and try and control my top drive? I think the answer is very clearly no on that now. That's what the drilling contractor will do.
So what is the key thing that you think could take place in the industry that would really accelerate forward the ability for the industry to be able to automate more things there at on the drilling rig, specifically within the drilling side of it?
I think it's always dollars, Dave. Everything comes back to that in our industry. I clearly understood metric that you can track and measure in the value that you get from doing it. I think the minute you do that, everyone will jump on board. You can look back in history at any sort of major technology advancements. Top drives is a great example. When they were first introduced, the minute it was understood the value or the return on investment that people get from it, it was very widely adopted very quickly. I think it'll be the same thing with automation. I honestly would challenge anybody to say that the value statement has been clear up until now. I think it's becoming clearer now. And particularly North America has taken the lead in being able to quantify that. But that for me is what will drive it. I don't think it's a technology issue at all. We can solve any of the technology barriers we have. The key is always going to be, is it worth the money?
So what are some of the more recent things that you've seen that we've been able to kind of get through?
Honestly, I think there's been this uncertainty about what is it that we integrate and how do we integrate between operator, service company, and drilling contractor. And I come back to this statement about this fear that okay, what do you mean you want to come and automate my rig? Well, what exactly does that mean? I think we're getting a much clearer picture now of What is it that the operator's interface to the drilling system is? What is the service company's interface to the drilling system? Who owns automation of the machines versus automation of the process? And how do we blend those things together? I think that has become much clearer in the last 12 months, to the point at which I think things will now start to proceed and move forward at pace. Quite honestly, I would say 12 months ago, it was perhaps a smaller minority of the industry in this space that kind of were articulating what we were trying to do. I think it's much broader now, and that will really change everything now that everybody's on board, hopefully, with the direction.
So do you think that's a large part of what you guys have been doing through the DSATS group?
Well, it's certainly the remit of DSATS. I mean, that's one of the things. DSATS is often misunderstood. People think it's a standards body, right? Or it's there to create and define solutions. It's not. It's a networking enablement group that it acts as a catalyst for change. It connects people and can advise and kick off efforts to say, hey, maybe we do need a standard here. Let's have an early sort of outline of that people can hang their hats on and move forward. I think it's fair to say DSATS has had quite a bit to do with that. I think also there's the DWIS group, which is now back as a subcommittee, and DSATS came from DSATS originally before it kind of spun out for a while. As an industry group. I still think there's a lack of clarity in terms of what we're actually going to try and do specifically, or what actually even needs to be done. It's not clear to me if we need standards or where those standards exist. What's clear though is the type of solution and the application of that solution. I think it's becoming clearer. So I think, partly DSATS, but also I think just quite honestly through the networking of people that DSATS has enabled, is conversations between different parties with a desire to move things forward. For example, we have automation of our downhole tools. They have automation of the rig. One of the areas I see that's really driven it is in integrated project management, because now in that environment you have a commercial contract between the drilling contractor and the service company, which makes it much easier to actually develop that integration, because there's a mutual benefit in doing so to both parties, instead of operating through the operator independently of each other. And I think I particularly see integrated projects as the path forward for implementing these kinds of solutions in the very near term. And then I think once they're proven and the value statement's very, very clear from those, then you'll see it become much more broadly accepted. I have to say, I think there's probably a difference between onshore markets and offshore markets for that. There's, LSTK is very prevalent in Middle East, North America land, not so much. Offshore, it's really integrated projects. But I think that it will roll through them as it becomes clearer. And what I think I would say is it's no longer talk. I think I see and I do want to key on this, the drilling system automation now becoming a reality and rolling out across markets. Middle East is really taking the lead, in my opinion. So
in saying that, do you believe that at some point in time we could see more integrated project management in U.S. land?
I work in integrated project management, so I hope the answer is yes, because I'll benefit from it. I don't know. I think U.S. land is such a dynamic market. I mean, it's so competitive, right? It is, you have so many companies operating in there, and it's really hard for large service companies that can build these big integration systems to compete there when they've got all these overheads that have to be managed versus 5 guys in a truck with a really, really good tool. So I'm not sure we'll see the project management space move into US land. I suspect there may be some new form of commercial model arises. What that is, I could not tell you right now. I have no idea, but I suspect we might come up with something new. But the key to it will be having some kind of, contractual relationship between the drilling contractor and the service company, because I think that's what will drive the value.
So I want to dig into that a little bit more, because it seems like, it's a monetary gain at that point in time for the service company and for the drilling contractor, or at least then if they're in a contractual agreement, then their goals are aligned with the same, I guess, financial incentives, right? Everybody's goal, be safe out at the rig, drill faster, get the job done. But, there's a lot of different ways to be able to slice that. And, if the service company makes more money when the drilling contractor's pumps go down for 2 days, because they're still there on day rate. Could the innovation, right? And we had great John Clegg on the show before, and he said, one of the ways to be able to innovate is to change a business model. Yep. So could the innovation just be that service companies and drilling rig contractors went to instead of dollars per day, went to dollars per foot? And then, at that point in time, the service company wants to get things done faster. The drilling rig contractor wants to get things done faster. Is that a potential possibility there?
Yeah, I think you in terms of outcome, absolutely. The question I have is how do you prevent it just becoming a race to the bottom of the barrel? I don't want to throw shade on LSTK because I work in that space, and I'll probably get slapped around the head for saying anything in terms of that. But one of the challenges that frankly has always faced LSTK jobs is
and tell us that acronym real quick.
Sorry, lump sum turnkey. Has been that you're what you're doing is you're saying I can do it better than you and cheaper than you. Give me your current budget and whatever I don't use I will keep, sort of thing. Well, the next time if you do it, then the next time you're going to get a smaller budget, right? And it's really a race to the bottom of the barrel each time until you really can't scrape much more out. I think there has to be, there's companies out there that are now looking at production gain as part of the metric, where they're trying to tie wellbore quality. I'm not sure how open to that operators will really be. That seems like giving something away that might be too much for them. But I wish I could give an answer on what I think the new commercial model would be. But I think it's something that really is worth us all getting in a room and talking through and really understanding, where are the synergies? Where's the waste in the system? How can we get rid of the waste? How can we make sure that the benefits are amplified? How can we do those things, but do it in a way that rewards everybody? It's not seen as a way of just removing cost and therefore I'm going to give you less, right? If I could take cost out of the system, then we should get rewarded for that. And I think that's something we could all get behind. What that looks like, I don't know, but I will say I think integrated projects is the place to figure it out.
Well, we've gotten we've got a couple of things are moving pretty quick here. Here we go. So LinkedIn user says LSTK would be the future globally. It's just a matter of time when this would be widely accepted more than what it is at the moment.
I've been in the industry long enough to say I saw that very thing in the probably mid-90s. And when the industry turned and the dollars per barrel went up, the whole drill mentality came out. That just got thrown to the wayside, and everybody was just drilling as many wells as they could, as quick as they could. This industry's very reactive. It's not very strategic when it comes to those things. And rightly so, because we're private companies, we're public companies, we're owned by shareholders. We have to, provide a return. I don't disagree with the intent behind that. I just question whether LSTK in its current form it can really sustain that when it happens. I think it behooves us to rethink it. And Duncan, actually, I noticed, made a comment down there that current LSTK models kind of serve the driller, not the geologist, and that's kind of the heart of what I'm trying to get at. Is I think we need to rethink the value metrics and what we're actually trying to achieve. Is it just about day rate? Then okay, in that case, why are you even deploying an automated rig? Just put an old SCR rig on it and be done. It'll be the cheapest day rate you can get. You're probably going to spend a lot more money drilling your well. It's going to take an awful lot longer, and the wellbore quality won't be as good, but your day rate's down. So I think Duncan's point is a good one, and we need to seriously rethink that or revisit the models. It's time for some innovation, basically, right?
Have you heard of anybody that's actually done pricing where it was tied to production?
I heard.
Has it actually been done?
I heard a rumor that there was a drilling contractor in North America. I can't off the top of my head remember who it was, but I'd heard a rumor that I don't know whether they did it or they were proposing it. But I know it's not something that I came up with. I heard it elsewhere as a proposal. Whether it actually went forward, I have no idea. But it would be interesting to find out.
Could it be something to where, because essentially at that point in time, you're taking essentially a working interest in the well, right? And so,
yeah,
if the well produces very well, which there's a lot of factors that go into that. Obviously, geology, the drilling, completions, production team. Is that too much risk for the service companies?
Well, I probably with the current model, but one of the things that's impacting the industry is a lack of the talent pipeline, right? I think we are going to have to bridge those gaps just because there's going to be a talent shortage that we're going to have to be much more effective with how we manage that. I think when we do that, we perhaps start to break down the silo that exists between the well construction part of the process and then the completion, production, and operation of an asset. I see a comment here about, saying operators will push harder for lower prices in addition with competition. Well, they've been doing that since I've been in this industry 35 years. There's nothing new about that. I think operators will...
That's not going to change. That will be a constant.
Yeah, but I think operators also will what I personally see, and particularly, I use Aker BP as I hold them up as an example where they're looking now for alliances. They have a technology alliance in Norway where they're willing to share the value, but you have to take some of the risk, right? They want an alliance partner. They don't just want a service company who's dollars per day. So to your point, if you want to share in some of that value, you've got to take some of the risk too.
Well, I'm willing to step out there right now and say to any of the operators that are watching, I will supply all of my data for free to get a small percentage point in any of the wells that you guys are operating in, any of my services that I could do.
I love the comments here because we've clearly triggered. We got there's all kinds of ideas starting to pop in there. I don't disagree with any of them.
So pricing relative to oil production, that was Chuck's. Which one were you thinking? Duncan?
I look at Duncan's comment, and I also, John mentioned there that production sharing contracts were in place a few years back, appear to have waned. I had wondered, I'd heard about that, but I kind of with John on this, maybe I hadn't heard much of it so much recently. Again, come back to, I think this is where integrated projects really can help, because I think it's easier for parties to manage and share the risk in that kind of environment than it is when it's a point-to-point contract operating model, where it's like, okay, you want me to take some of the risk, but all you're going to give me is this thin slice of the pie, right? Well, what's in it for me? Is always a challenge. It's almost the same conversation you have when, I think, 4 years ago when we were telling the rig contractors, say, hey, we want to automate your rig. And they were like, you want to control my machines. Well, what's in it for me? Apart from a whole bunch of risk, right? So, and they made their stance clear on that, and they were correct. I think we covered that previously, but it's, anything to work, there has to be quid pro quo, right? There has to be benefits on both sides, or just simply will die on the vine.
Yeah, Duncan said, cover the personnel costs, generally 65%, and tie the additional revenue to production, all tied to success, speed, and safety. Triple S right there.
Yeah. Duncan's. I've known Duncan a long time, which is why I quickly called him last night and bribed him not to show any of the photos. But he's Duncan's a creative mind about this stuff, for sure. Somebody I think would be worth having on your show if you haven't already, and hearing what he has to say about this. He's quite an innovative guy.
Well, we've got an open spot June 2nd.
There you go,
Duncan. So if you want it, June 2nd, June 16th, and June 30th. So we've got some open spots there. If you would like to be able to come on the show and share your thoughts about it, we can make that happen. Quick question here from Chuck. It says, does the IPM manage from spud to first oil and well life?
IPM manages whatever the contract says it manages. It's not a fixed thing. I mean, you'll find different contracts from operator to operator, quite honestly. I think it's the answer to that. So the answer is it can do if that's what you want, but it's not defined as being specifically that. Sometimes it's just drill a well. Sometimes it's just run the services on a rig that's drilling the well. For me, sometimes it's you contract the drilling contractor, and sometimes it's all of the above. So it's very diverse. I do see a comment here from Eric Vilpu, which I think is great. Is it difficult to go from systematic thinking to system thinking, and even more with many stakeholders? Do you think it's a limiting factor? Yes, and yes to all of that. It very much is.
Well, break that down for a little bit for us to
yeah. So systematic thinking is you have I think John DeWart had an article on it about systems of interest and systems. So you maybe you've got an automated rotary steerable, and then you have an automated rig, and then you have an automated well plan. So that's systematic thinking, right? And you think about it in different systems of subsystems, but then you get to system thinking, you start to think about it more holistically. And the question then, quite frankly, becomes is, why do I care about ROP? If I drill a whole section faster, but the casing doesn't get to the rig site any sooner, then as a system, what have I actually optimized? And the answer may be nothing. So it's great when you walk in the remote operations centers and you see all the KPIs, but they're very systematically set up. And I think that's one of the areas that IPM and the integration with rig contractors and that sort of quid pro quo, we can really start to think more about the system, the drilling system of systems, and where's the actual cost. Where am I actually? Where can I gain? Where am I losing efficiency or money? And how do I reduce the total cost of well construction? And Yeah, Eric's absolutely right. There's so many stakeholders, and that's the limiting factor, which is precisely why I think IPM is a great place to start solving that, because we frankly have fewer stakeholders. It's much easier.
Everybody kind of pointed at one direction, or at
Yeah.
least a single project manager who
Right.
says, at the end of the day, this is what we're trying to be able to
Right.
accomplish for the client, whereas different departments may have different things. But like as you said, there's no point in getting the hole drill faster if not even so much if the casing can get on location, if casing can get to the bottom of the hole.
Yeah.
Which is a thing that
you must have been in some of the jobs I did then. Yeah.
I have never been out there for the final casing run. I have not been on any jobs for the final casing run. I usually get MWD guys get asked to leave by that point in time. So Gregory throws out here, and somebody else did too, talking about smart contracts. Oh, Greg's watching maybe on both. So it was Greg D and here. So Greg, thank you. You're boosting the numbers watching on both platforms.
Yeah, I actually I think Greg's point is a good one. My note of caution would be, I think there's a tendency to think about smart contracts in terms of micro payment points or metrics. And the danger would be if we do that within the framework of the existing contracts, which are still based on very disparate functions, then what will we truly gain apart from perhaps improved DSOs, and who gains from that? The vendor. But we should really think about those smart contracts in terms of the integrated capability in the system. And what is the actual goal that we're trying to achieve? There's so many. If you do an MBA, you spend years in your MBA. The amount of case studies you do on poorly incentivized behavior and how incentives can really mess you up. I think smart contracts is an area that has huge potential, but we need to be really careful that we provide the right incentives on it, and we don't just incentivize the wrong behavior.
I'm going to preface this before I pull it up here, but I think this is probably one of the most profound comments I think we've ever had on the Vidor Locksmith show. Felipe nailed it right here. Current technology, and he put in the next one, is way ahead of the actual oil and gas business model.
I'm not sure I agree.
No, okay.
I think it's a very loaded question, that, because there's two different aspects there: the business model and the technology. So I'm trying to think through what Philippe actually maybe means there, and I'm fearful that I misinterpret what he's really asking. He's
give
not
us
asking,
your perspective, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the technology is ahead of our business model. It's just that we've not matured our. Well, maybe he is right. Maybe we haven't really, adapted and evolved our business model to leverage the technology that's available to allow us to do so. I think that's what he's getting at with that. Would I agree with it? Maybe, perhaps. I
like how you've gone from being against it to with it.
Business models will adapt to whatever works, always. John DeWart can talk at length about how, almost every sort of business model that we see getting thrown up today has been done in the past, right? The question isn't, will it work? The question is, why did it stop being used? What prevented us? What was fundamentally wrong with it? And I guess that's where my pushback comes, and maybe pushback's too strong a word, but it is to really think about I don't think technology should be driving it, is my point. The technology's there, yes, okay, fine, but that's not what should be driving this. It shouldn't be a technology discussion. It should be a value discussion.
So we gotta get
That was
technology.
so much business hogwash, wasn't it? Yeah.
Doug Blue says operator has taken advantage of contractors and service companies, yet the technology is 100% controlled by the contractor and oil field service company.
Yeah, I know we like to think so. I'm not sure it's also completely accurate. I think generally it's probably true. Duncan's probably right there, but also a lot of the operators are investing heavily in technology. I think Duncan's point here is controlled by, and I think that comes back to operators are really over the years have created some fantastic technologies, inflatable packers, rotary steerables, for example. The question it really is, in order for it to become commercially viable, it has to be moved out to an organization that can actually run it, service it, and scale it across the globe, which is not what they do. And that's where you see them partnering with the service companies or the drilling contractors and OEMs as well, like NOV and HMH and others. So I guess it's a symbiotic relationship, frankly, and I'm not sure what Duncan's getting at there, but I feel like if I get drawn into that one, I'll get in trouble. So,
all right, we'll go here with John's comment. I think the challenge is to define what a quality well is and how can it be measured so that drillers can deliver a product production is happy to use.
I have one answer to that, and that is I agree. Full stop.
There we go.
I would love somebody to point me at where that's been done. And I for the life of me, I think I had an interview with Steve Rassenfoss a couple of years ago on this, and I know Duncan, John, many of the people in this call, we've had lots of conversations about that, but I still, where has that been done? Who's done it? I don't understand why not. I mean, any other industry, you would be measured on the quality of your product, right? Cost, quality, and time. We only seem to be measured on cost and time. Where's the quality piece, right?
True. Very
For
true.
life of me, I don't know. I mean, it would seem to be something that would be relatively straightforward to solve and start doing. I really don't understand why we haven't.
Well, maybe we need to get a productions and or completions people to come on the show and start giving us their top 10 list.
We had a DSATS symposium about 3 years ago, maybe 4, in San Antonio, and I cannot remember the lady's name, but she was head of completions at Oxy at the time. Probably John DeWart can throw the name in chat, but I remember her saying that, look, one of the biggest problems we have is we design a completion based on the well you tell us you're going to drill, and then you don't drill that well. It's slightly different, and you don't tell us that it's now a different well until it's too late for me to do anything about it. I can redesign the completion very quickly if you give me that information. So she was kind of advocating for that information to be made more readily available throughout the process. I don't know if anybody's started to look at that, but Shannon, there you go, Shauna Noonan, that was right.
Yep.
And I thought she made a good point. And then on another, it was one of the SPE Gulf Coast sections. They had a whole session about wellbore quality and making the point that we're so fixated on ROP. And it's because the incentive we have is to be fixated on it, when if you really think about the true value and the cost, then that's not the right metric. That's a sub-metric.
All right, we got another one here from John Dulles. The technology is at the cusp of being able to solve problems that is not in the contracts. Sweet spot drilling, RSS plus geosteering has the impact to enhance the life of well production. How do you get paid for that?
So first of all, big shout out to John Dahl. I worked with John many years at Baker Hughes, and it was one of the best engineers I ever met in my life. Superb human being, and I'm so glad to see him in the chat.
He's a regular here in the comment section of the show.
John Dahl's an awesome human being as well as engineer, both aspects. Love him. How do you get paid for it? I think that's the question. I don't have an answer to that. I think that the point is,
I mean, that kind of goes back to the very beginning of our conversation about the value proposition is knowing how to be able to do that, right?
So I'll tell you, about a year ago, myself and Mike Bahunik said, you know what, let's have an SPE forum. Let's get a 3-day event and let's talk through this, figure this one out and how we put it together. And what happened was we ended up descending into a technology discussion, and it became all about smart contracts and the technology that enables them, and it became about everything apart from how do we get paid for that, right? And I think it's worth looking at again. I think an SPE forum is the wrong way to do it. I think maybe get DSATS or DSATS in another technical section, or I don't know, IADC or whoever to sponsor. Let's just put a day's worth event together and actually, define what is it we want to achieve. Why isn't it happening today? What needs to change? I think once you have those three things kind of understood, then you can start to really look at how do you change it and improve it. That's the best answer I can give you, John, and I can hear him shaking his head and saying, Murray hasn't changed in 20 years. He still doesn't answer the damn question.
I want to throw this so that it all boils down to the funding. Bring the money and the technology will work. Paul Moore. Then Greg says, defining metrics can be quite difficult. How do you measure whole quality?
Yeah.
How do you pay a service company for production quality?
Yeah, how much of it was down to the design, which the engineer did, and the operator versus the actual construction process? I totally agree. I think that's where you have to stop thinking about it in terms of a tactical. What's the phrase I'm looking for here? A process of commodities that take place, and start thinking about it in terms of mutual value. How do I incentivize you to behave and do the right things when I'm not looking and when I'm not being measured? Robin, I love Robin's comment about the ability to do all those, but that's kind of my point. Is I don't think that's ever going to really take off until we change the way in which we actually contract with each other, to really start thinking about how do I incentivize behaviors on all sides towards mutual benefit and sharing the gains among all parties. How do we fundamentally change the way we contract with each other? And I think all of that comes back to the earlier comment about the technologies ahead of the business model. Well, then you'd need to do something. It tells you everything that you need to know. There is we've got to look at this business model, and it has to be beneficial for everyone. It has to be a quid pro quo. So I think we don't need to think so much about how do you measure production quality, but talk to the production teams about why do they care? What's the value for them? Key in on that, figure that out, be able to articulate it, and then you could start thinking about, okay, if I was to do the following and measured it as in this manner, would that be something that you're worth paying for? Right, and then we'll take the risk if we don't meet the quality metric. And then to Robin's point, at that point, you could put all those KPIs in smart contracts and measure them, and it's all good.
Yeah, I'll put Robin's comment back up there. Smart contracts work when the parties involved agree on KPIs, which are beneficial to all of them. This requires reliable data from reliable sensors, and one key factor, collaboration. The best business models all require this level of alignment.
I'm 100% aligned with Robin. I love him dearly, but that last sentence is the problem. What is the best business model? That's the bit that's not defined, right? So I think right now the business model's day rate or footage. There's we need to rethink it. I think, or at least spend a reasonable amount of time looking at it together to find out if there's value in changing it.
At the end of the day, everybody has to make money. I think that's where the greed part comes in. It says who wants to make the most and who deserves the most. So back to some of the automation stuff that we were talking about. What would be the positive return on automation in terms of well barriers and well integrity in general?
Let me think about that one. I tell you what, as I think about that one, do you mind if I answer Duncan's question next? I'm going to come back to Mustafa's question. So Duncan's really asking, where's the proof? I think that the key is automation is not about optimization. We need to separate these things in our head. That you don't automate a process in order to optimize it. You automate a process in order to assure performance so that the same thing happens over and over again, right? And there's enough waste in our industry of outliers in performance that automation will deliver value that way. I think Shell rather famously said during the last downturn after they had developed SCADA that once the number of rigs was reduced to 5 or 6 in their fleet, and they had the very best drillers on all of them, then the automation was not it wasn't providing value. But when you've got 30, 40 rigs drilling, and you've got crews coming into a region and they're new to it, and they don't know the rig, they don't know the geology, they don't know the metrics, and that's where automation helps because it assures a level of performance. So I think it's very important that we separate optimization from automation. They're not the same thing, and we shouldn't confuse them. Optimization models can be used within an automation system and to help it and drive performance, but that's not the same as the automation system. So that's my answer to Duncan there. Mustafa was asking what would be the positive return of automation in terms of well barriers and well integrity in general. So it's actually a pretty loaded question. I mean, there's automation of what precisely, right? Within that question, are we talking about automated BOPs? Are we talking about a rig automation system? We're talking about a drilling automation system, which is much broader. I think there's so many aspects of how you could answer that from in terms of having an assurance in terms of how the BOP behaves or is triggered, is used, to how do we inform the driller and make sure that the rig is on top of things and processes are automated or indeed taken out of automation when they need to be. And then you go up to the drilling system, whereas, my design, how do I make sure my design is still valid, accurate? What needs to change in there, perhaps? So I think there's positive returns all over it, but it's not a simple question, that one. I think there's many aspects to it.
Well, we're getting here towards the end of the hour, and something that I definitely wanted to be able to bring up to you, and not to completely change directions, but you'd spoken about it earlier, and that was about getting new talent into the industry and how that's going to have a big effect.
Yeah.
Expand on that a little bit for me.
So I'm very lucky actually to work right now with one of the most talented young engineers I've come across in a very long time. I'm going to give him a shout out, a gentleman called Julian Mark. He's Belgian, but you can't help that. He is, it's refreshing to see somebody that's not just bright and intelligent, but excited to work in this industry. And it got me thinking, and I was discussing this with my youngest lad is in his final year at Texas A&M in engineering. And I asked him, well, when you graduate, would you work in oil and gas industry? And his answer stunned me. As he turned around and he said, why? Your industry does a god-awful job of selling itself to us. And I said, what do you mean? He said, look, I've sat in the house and I've listened to these stories of adventure and excitement of how you've traveled the world, the experiences you've had all over the world. None of that is being sold to me as an engineer by your industry as a reason to join. I'm getting told, technically we are the leading edge, or it's you'll get into large corporations where we'll develop you professionally and personally. And actually, what he said is most of them want to hear, I'm going to go into an environment where it's going to be exciting. I'm going to see the world. I'm going to travel places, and I'm going to experience new things. The oil and gas industry most definitely did that for me. I am so grateful for the experiences I've had in my life from this industry. I don't think I would have got them in any other industry in this world. Quite honestly, and I'd love for my children to have that same experience. So I told him that, and he said, "Well, now you've given me a reason to join oil and gas industry. Now it makes sense." And I just kind of wonder if we should really rethink a little bit about how we portray ourselves to the younger generation that's coming into the pipeline, and stop trying to make excuses. And apologize for who we are, but actually upsell ourselves as a really vibrant industry that they will get much more out of than they will ever have to put in.
And you bring up a great point, because I think about, with my career early on, I started in Australia. I've been to many places across the world due to the industry. The guy that I rent an office from, he's done the exact same. The guy that works the other office next to me, he's worked internationally. So all three of us that are continue to be in this and enjoy it have all really embraced that fact that we have been able to go many places. And I think that there's some level of this that even goes into ties into the conversation we had earlier, where a drilling rig here is a drilling rig there, or 8.5-inch hole here is an 8.5-inch hole there. So that a lot of the experience that you may gain in one specific place can tie over to a whole nother geographical location, but it's essentially the exact same equipment, if not.
Yeah, and I've walked through the jungles in West Africa and Gabon to see a line of army ants marching across the jungle road where we've stopped and we've waited while they went. Duncan has got photos of things we'll not discuss about here, he says. I'm quite sure he probably does. But, I've seen things quite outside of oil and gas. My point is I've seen things and experienced things around the world that I just wouldn't have in any other industry, And we should be selling that to these young engineers. We really should.
And I think it makes for a great engineer to be able to do that and work with a diverse group of individuals in diverse locations. So maybe for any of the, maybe not some of the small companies, but any of the corporate companies that are watching, that should probably see something, instead of just sending guys straight off to Midland or down to South Texas. Why don't you send them somewhere else and then bring some of the guys from outside of the country into South Texas and Midland and let them have that experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, just last week I was driving through a certain country in an armored vehicle with a flak jacket and a Kevlar helmet on. What other job in the world can you be getting interviewed by Dave Gibson the next week? Right?
See, now that's a picture I want to see, is you in the flak jacket and Kevlar helmet.
Actually, the picture you wanted to see was me trying to get in the first one that I'm so big it didn't fit. That's the one you want to see. That was funny.
So John says, oil and gas career is an experience. At least it is what a polar bear on the North Slope told me. There we go. One of the spots I haven't been yet, but should be able to go to very soon. And I believe this one is from Robert Estes. The oil field is all over the world. Join us and see it.
Amen, brother. It is. And nationalities in the oil industry don't exist. We're brotherhood and a sisterhood out there. It's a great place to work.
And it's bound to happen anytime you have a conversation with somebody like, oh, I used to work in XYZ location. Oh, do you know so-and-so? Oh, yeah, I worked with them. And so there's that 1 degree of separation. I also have to put in there, Julian Mark is actually watching And he says, I should
I
record
saw
that
that.
quote. And he says, I appreciate more.
He's probably recorded that for his boss, and he's going to send it to him. Yeah.
We'll send you the clip. All right. And then John asks, how are you handling human factor issues in the application of your automation system? Speaking of having to bring in new people and how they're going to interact with our systems.
So I've actually, I would say a month ago, deeply concerned about that. And for example, there's this thing called cognitive tunneling, right? Which is a known effect within automation systems, that if you completely automate something and the human operator is no longer regularly interacting with it, they get tunnel vision. And when something happens and the operator needs to take control back, they don't. What they do is they try and fix the automation system, right? When all they should do is take control back and run it manually till they figured it out. So there's this notion of adaptive control or dynamic control, where you cede control back to the operator at sort of random events or intervals to make sure that they're engaged with the system. And I really believed, was concerned about how much thinking was going into that. But actually, as I've talked to more and more of the practitioners of these or developers of these systems, it turns out that quite a lot of this is being built into these systems and being considered. And actually, there appears to be a deal of expertise within our industry around human factors. I think the question is, why is nobody in the drilling automation space aware of that expertise? And we should be engaging it. I know DSATS is currently forming a subcommittee to look at human factors. And I know that, as I've recently found out, there's actually a number of articles, documents, and recommendations on it in Europe, certainly, that can be considered and applied. I think it's a worthy effort, whether it exists, doesn't exist, is hidden, is open, whatever. It certainly is an area that we need to look at, particularly in terms of automation, to ensure that, at the end of the day, regardless of how good our automation systems are, the driller and the drill crew have to be able to drill a well manually. They have to be able to. And they have to be able to manage all those things. That will go away. We are a long way away from an autonomous drilling system. Whether I think is a good debate as to whether we'll even get there, whether there's value in getting there. Right now, we're in levels of automation, and that requires a considered approach to the human factors that result from automating those processes. So good point, John.
Well, John, thank you for the question. Thanks everybody else for being able to join us here. Moray, anything else that you would like to be able to share with the audience today?
Look, I'd maybe just we, as an old Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times. It's actually considered a bit of a curse in Chinese, but I think it applies to us here, as we're living in some very interesting times, and the opinions need to be flexible right now, because there's a lot of things. I'm going to sound like one of these famous, what was the general from Iraq here. There are known knowns, there are unknown knowns, and there are known unknowns, and then there are unknown unknowns. Whatever the heck that phrase meant, I think applies here. Is we're evolving the business model, we're evolving the technology, we're evolving the contracting models. Technology is evolving. The industry externally is going under huge turmoil. I think it behooves everybody to be very open right now with our opinions and our thoughts, and debate these things and listen to each other. And it's going to be an interesting time. The next 5 years, I think, we're going to go through a revolution in our industry, one way or another.
There we go. And then Robin McMillan said SPE has a human factors technical section
Yes,
designed
they
to
do.
address these challenges. And they actually presented
And the
to the drilling
subcommittee
advisory group the other day.
Yeah, and actually the SPE subcommittee on it is I believe is going to be aligned to that technical section, so it'll kind of be an outlet between the two to focus specifically on drilling automation, but aligned to that team. So yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at to Robin's point, is I've discovered there's a lot more human factors experts in our industry than I was aware of. I thought it was something that was scarce. It's really not.
And I want to throw this one last question out there, just because a lot of the people that do watch the show are of this type. What could be the fate of DDs and geologists after successfully automated RSS, azimuthal LWD, and rig actuators closed loop?
I think they get to be DDs and geologists instead of operators, frankly. And what I mean by that is automation will take care of the mundane, the repetitive, the things that have to be done quickly, and it will free them to use their brains and think about how do I provide my customer with the very best wellbore? How do I land this in the reservoir and maximize production for them? And answer all those questions. I think it will evolve them to do what they're actually, we get the most value from those people, and take away perhaps some of the load that gets in the way of them being able to really spend time maximizing that value.
There we go.
And whether they're on the rig or remote, I know it's all moving remote, but that doesn't change that answer.
Well, there we go. All right, let's add it to the stream. Here we go. Let's make a quick drawing for today. Anybody that wants to be able to get the drill bit and or some of the Patterson swag that we've got here, we're going to go ahead and hit the drawing for today. Moray, thank you so much for being on the show this week. Really, really do appreciate it. And I'm going to laugh if Julian's... All right, Brian do this. Brian's the one that wins this week.
Brian and I worked together 15, 20 years ago. He's a wonderful human being, and good to see him win something. Brian, well done.
All right. Well, Moray, thank you so much for coming on to the show and being a part of this. Obviously, you had a lot to say that a lot of us were very, very interested in.
I hope so.
And I look forward for us being able to get together at some sort of SPE event or
next Friday, the Woodlands, the IEDD event. I was talking to Julian this morning and said we plan to go. So
Thursday. That one's on Thursday.
It's Thursday. Sorry, Thursday.
Yes,
right.
that's the one I will be speaking at. So I do have a presentation for that one about public domain data. So
yeah, it actually looks like an excellent lineup that whole day. So I'll be there for sure.
All right. Well, then I will see you on Thursday, sir. I do appreciate it. For everybody out there watching, I hope to see all of y'all on Thursday as well. If you haven't signed up, IDD dash, I don't even know what the website is. Somebody else can find it. It's not that hard to find. That's it for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Do appreciate it. And as always, know your industry.
Thank you.